So I want to make in this painting a few corrections. Feel free to watch the part 1 and part 2. This is where I added the greens, and I've normally saved my paints in the freezer, and I got them out. You may see them in slightly different order from where I normally have them. I usually like to have the white on the left corner, and then I go from cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium red, permanent alizarin crimson, phthalocyanine green, and French ultramarine blue. These are the mixes that I had in my previous installment part 2. I encourage you to look at them, but basically what you see here is these are done using the ochre, yellow ochre. This is yellow ochre with ultramarine blue, same but with more yellow ochre than ultramarine. And this is yellow ochre with phthalocyanine green. It's over here. I just had a little bit left. Then what you see here is phthalocyanine green with cadmium yellow, and then more cadmium yellow in this particular one. Phthalocyanine green has a very potent strength, so you really need very little of it. And this is the phthalo with ochre. So we have worms and cools, even if they have the same tone. For instance, this tone, which this ended up being a mixture of the greens that I had, which I might be using for some of these reflections in the water. So phthalocyanine green has a blue tint, and that provides a cooler mixture when you mix it either with cadmium yellow or the yellow ochre. Cadmium yellow is warmer than yellow ochre. When mixed with ultramarine blue, we can get the two differences. However, because we're using ultramarine blue instead of the phthalocyanine, it's the one that I used on this area for warmer feeling. So the idea is to have cooler on one side where the shadow is, and warmer on the side where the light is hitting. Okay, so like I said, definitions of cool and warm vary a lot. I have not seen anybody who very clearly says exactly what you see. I have to confess that sometimes I am confused about phthalocyanine green. Is it warm or is it cool? But what I want you to see is this is more blue than this. And the bluer one is the one that I call cooler. So that's my definition. I just made a little bit of a violet because this shadow here, this bank here, went a little bit more straight. And even though I don't want to be defining super clearly these areas in the shadow, I thought it was probably better to define. So this overhanging tree here has a bit of a reflection, and the reflections should be darker than what they reflect, although there should be some harmony in the colors that they're reflecting. So that's as much as I wanted to fix in there for that shadow. Now I am going to probably be using a little bit of this green. Like I said, you need to have the reflections darker than what they reflect. And so in here, we have to be reflecting the edge. And if you can see my brush, I am using Simply Simmons size 8, has separated some of the hairs. I don't mind when I want to have some sort of a very loosely, I think you can see, I mean, I don't know if you can see, but I'm just holding the brush very loosely and I'm just trying to mix it here so we can see which was the reflection of the water and what is the bank. The bank obviously is not wiggly. And you know, these wiggly shapes, the more, sometimes the more colors you have, So don't mix too well. The better, I think. Well, that depends on how you want it. But you know, if you like to have it more like they say the poster image, then you can have it straight colors. But if you don't mix the colors too much, I think it does look nicer. And there was definitely an area where these reflections were slightly brighter on that reflect this particular area that was catching the light. I don't want to dwell too much in going over some of these colors, but this is what I wanted to make sure that this looked a little bit better. Now I need to work on this reflection. This reflection is definitely in the wrong place. Should be more in here because it should be coming down. I think I've mentioned in other YouTube videos that I tend to tilt my head sometimes, and also it's not an excuse. I'm just it's something that I like doing these videos, but when I'm painting these videos, I want you to have the straighter view possible. That means that I am painting at an angle so that I'm not on the way of the filming. And yeah, this really should be here, and it should really be okay. Reflections go down, and it should be lighter than what I painted because that's farther away. So I'm going to use this, which was a mix from last time, leftover from last time when I was doing these areas. So let's use a little bit of that more in this area. And what I'm trying to do here is make sure that the blades of grass in here, because it's opened, a little bit opened, I hope that I can do like negative painting on these blades of grass. And I am painting the reflection, which again, it should be darker than what they reflect, but bear in mind that this is reflecting something that's farther away. So I thought it probably would benefit if I painted this a little bit lighter. Maybe I went too light. Well, we'll see. The good thing about, I hope you're not getting tired of this particular painting. I thought the first time I did it that I was done with it. I was very happy, but then I'm looking a little bit more on it. You start realizing that maybe it's not as well achieved as you can. And the good thing about the oil painting and acrylics is that you can work on it. You can improve on them. Don't give up unless you really don't want to see that again. But if not, you can always make a painting that is not quite working. You can improve it. I'm just going a little bit lighter. So in oil paint, you introduce the lighter after you placed your darks. And these reflections, definitely, I wanted them to, well, this is not reflecting anything. So I'm going to have to open this a little bit with the color of the water, because the reflection should be reflecting this, right? Okay, and that's one thing that's very good about you seeing what I am doing, because you can see how easy it is to correct. There's a tutor that I really like. She's excellent, Kelly Folsom, and she mentions she doesn't like to do what I just did. She always tries to, but again, I mean, she's a much better painter. She likes to try to paint either on top of what she has, but not scrape off. This is making a bit more sense now, but I still want to work a bit on the water. And of course, now I need to fix that too. I have some colors of water that I had left over from before. The other thing is my sister watched this with me virtually, and she actually asked me that this is kind of dark, which makes sense because it's the back, but she sort of said, why don't you try to make it more of a brick color? And I think it's a very good idea the element of red is only on this piece of the painting, and maybe making it a little bit redder might work better. So I'm gonna put this brush on the side, and I'm gonna use now another size 8, and I'm going to work on the color of water. Now this color of water, this is more like what I had here. So I could, and like you see, it's not really completely mixed. And as you go to the horizon, the color of the water should be getting more and more light. So I just wanna make the impression of water here. And it was a little bit lighter on the edge, but not that light. So I'm gonna get a little bit more of the pure ultramarine blue, because this already has phthalocyanine green. Again, I encourage you to watch the part 2, where I made some of these mixes that you see here. And I explain a bit more about them. So yeah, in here, in this area of the water, what I was seeing was a bit more of the light closer to where those shrubs are. And I always like, I did mention that last time, but when I paint water, I like to sometimes introduce that blue in the reflection, eating into the reflection without exaggerating, but just have that little brushstroke helps oftentimes to define the shadows better. So I'm stepping a little bit in the back and seeing if this is making more sense. And this one here, I don't want to be too descriptive, but definitely I was seeing some of these areas of the tree that have some, so it's like the sky hole, but in this case it's reflecting in the water with an area that doesn't have much green in the reflection. So yeah, I think I had the reflection too straight down, which was a bit weird. Okay, I hope you see okay. I have an umbrella placed in close to the, I don't think you see much, but you can see a little bit of a blue in the back. That's my umbrella, because my shade broke and I need someone to help me. It's very, very heavy and I cannot put it back. So I paint with natural light and it was producing a big glare. So I had to put that umbrella in there. Okay, I think that improved that. So we can move now to the lighter area. And for the lighter area, this is a mixture, as I mentioned before, just recently. The original part 1 and part 2 have the mixes that I use. This is a natural gray, it's like a mid-value gray. So this is definitely too dark for that area. I mean, even looking at here, it may be better for some of these areas here. Well, maybe it was too light for that area. That's fine. The nice thing about water is change the values. Look at how Monet painted water. Oh, and now it came out dark. Okay, so fixing. No problem. We will get a bunch of white, and I don't want to do exactly, pure white, but we said that if this is overhanging, then the reflection starts later, and that's part of the focal point over there. Needs to have the lightest color of the water also reflecting on that area. And by having this contrast of light and dark, it also you tell the viewer where they should be looking. I hope I didn't bang the camera when I step back. Okay, so that is now a bit more, I think it makes a bit more sense that this is a bush that's overhanging here. Even the overhanging can cover a little bit more of that darker bridge in the back. So that would be a darker green. This is the cooler green. Maybe mixed a little bit with the warmer. I'm just brushing ever so slightly to give the idea that that's overhanging. Okay, and maybe a little bit, just a little bit of that particular color here. It doesn't really need too much to make sense with what you are seeing, hopefully. Okay, so that I think improves it. Now I'm gonna cut a little bit into this reflection. And when you paint water, make sure that you're painting straight, horizontal, because otherwise the eye tricks us and people might say, what's going on with that water? The water is running up or moving in the wrong direction. Okay, I don't want to mess too much because I liked it the way it was. I think I got rid of the contrast we had before. However, let's try the suggestion my sister had proposed. And what I'm going to do now, it's a very unusual thing, which is getting rid of my transparent colors. And I'm gonna use a size 6 now. I'm gonna probably try to use this combination here. It's not pure red. This has red with green, but I'm gonna try to use the redder area. That's too pinkish, too pinkish. So let's see, a little bit more of the darker red and a tiny bit of the yellow ochre. And yeah, I don't want to make it too prominently light, so perhaps I went too much with the white. I don't want to try to, just a hint of a red I think might not be a bad idea. And I hope you can see that in the image, in the photo. I'm looking at what you are seeing, and of course the brightness and the transparency, the effect of the oils is not captured really very prominently in the, I hope you can see it. I hope you can see the difference. I like it. It was a very good idea, I think. And I'm not doing the whole thing because part of the shadow should be, a shadow area should be darker, so it's bluer. Now I went a little bit too much here, so I can scrape it off and I can go back with my blue and fix that area. And although I said blue, because I already have blue in there, I'm gonna just go for very white in there. And you can see, even though I took the white, it is mixing, so it's not completely white. And sometimes I like to mix the vertical strokes for reflections and the horizontal strokes for the movement of the water. And this dry brushing is something that, if you don't like it, it's personal thing. It's like I say, your own signature. But this dry brushing, very, very, ever so slightly on the canvas, the paint underneath is partially dried and partially wet on wet, but that dry brush technique gives, I think, an impression of more of the reflections of water, like what you see, instead of painting dot, 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 doing that gives, I think, a better idea. I do like it. I like the idea of having changed that particular bridge and make it reddish. I think it's striking, definitely, but it's not offensive to the eye, I should say. And I think I just need to make sure that, you know, this area here of the reflection, I accidentally, with the red, I accidentally sort of moved into that reflection of something that I don't know what it is, because I don't see it. And I'm not using the same color. Sometimes, you know, instead of trying to match a color that you had, it's just better to add colors on top of colors. Oils are excellent at doing that layering because you don't completely lose what's behind. I'm using now the water, the brush I was using for the water, just to get a little bit in here, because I thought this was a bit too dark for that area. Just dot, dot, small dots. And I think, you know, the bridge now is the reddish color, which originally is not. But I thought it was a very good idea because then we have green and red. It's a good contrast. And I don't think it's too much on your face because I did not use cadmium red. As you see, I used the alizarin with white and a little bit of the yellow ochre. And I think this has improved. I think maybe a little touch of light in there, but I'm not sure. I think overall this is much better. I have the green brush here because I believe that even though I think the greens came out really well, I think for the areas that have more light, I don't want to make it yellow. The first version from part 1 was extremely yellow. It wasn't green. So I'm trying now the lightest green I had, which was ultramarine, and the yellow. I added a bit more of the cadmium yellow. Oh, and it's actually very dark. So no, forget that, because what I wanted to do was to get it lighter. So maybe I just need to add a little bit of this Phthalocyanine green with the cadmium yellow mix. Don't want to exaggerate too much. And you can see that this is almost mixing with the color or the gray color of the palette. So this means that it's still mid-tone and I wanted this lighter. So I'm gonna dare to use a little bit of the mix that I had with the light blue and from the water and the cadmium yellow. So you can see me making these mixes. You don't need to have a specific proportion. It's just bottom line, I want to get something that shows green, shiny or brilliant green color, which I don't want to use just the phthalo green, but lighter than this, just to put some spots in here. And I think it is working just for some spots. I don't want to do it everywhere. So even though it's a bright green, I think that by using the phthalocyanine makes it cooler. And I really wanted this to have more of a feeling of the bright light. So let's try again with the cadmium yellow and a little bit of green. Again, I don't want to make this yellow, but definitely I think it's good to have mottled areas. And again, you might actually be thinking that you can see the phthalocyanine mixtures, you might see them warm. Honestly, I sometimes get confused with the concept of what is warm and what is light. It's just I want to see more impression of light hitting this area, and that's why I wanted to make it brighter. And one of the challenges that I find, and that's, I don't have formal training, so that might be, maybe I should be trying to learn how to make things lighter and warmer, because using white makes things cooler, not warmer. And one thing that definitely helps is having this lighter color by the dark areas. I don't want to mess too much with it. I think it improved. I hope you liked it. This was a short follow-up. Change the bank, making sure this now looks a bit more straight. This is overhanging. Adapted the shadows and changed slightly the colors of the shadows to reflect more green. Definitely improve that reflection. I'm calling them shadows. This is shadow, but this is reflection. This reflection of this tree, now I think it goes a bit more, it's more logical of what we are seeing. And definitely in here, it was a bit darker in terms of the water, and the reflections and the water sometimes mix in terms of the same tonal value. I added this dry brushing of the whiter color that hopefully gives the idea of the light that is coming and hidden here. And I just added a few more touches of lighter green here. Enjoy, stay safe, and happy painting. Consider please subscribing to my channel and watch the other paintings that I have, the other parts I have of this painting and other paintings I have in my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.